Hello friends, it's Cindy Brumbaugh with CindyLeeBDesigns.com, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Today I'd like to show you what I call a peek through the middle card. When you look through this missing middle on the front of the card, you can peek through to the inside. So we're going to be using the first Frost bundle that's in the holiday catalog. Beautiful floral images and many different dies that cut out this image, this one, this one, this one, two of this, two of this. It's got great fonts in the sentiments and very versatile set. And then you'll notice, though, that I had this little peeking section here, and I used a stamp set in the annual catalog that's bundled with the little sour cream treat containers, and it is called the Treat Time stamp set. And it's got a lot of different sentiments in here that can pop right into that middle. So let's get started. I did do a card that had the landscape portion done, and this is a portrait one. So I wanted to show you the measurements on this one. But before we get started, let's just look at what we're going to be using. We're going to be using Tranquil Tide, a beautiful green that we have in our catalog, and our lineup for the in colors, the ones that will be retiring this year. So if you haven't got your papers and your inkers, it's always a good idea to throw them on whenever you're making an order. So we're going to be using a 4 1/4 by 11-inch piece, a half of a piece of cardstock. And what we're going to do to get our cuts is we are going to set aside our pretty card, and we are going to put the 11-inch side into our Stampin' trimmer. Put that dark blade down because we're going to score first at 5 1/2. So that's our halfway mark. Then we're going to take that score line and we're going to pop it over to 1 3/4. 1 3/4. And we are going to use our cutting blade to cut it. Then we're going to set that aside and take that leftover piece and bring it over to 2 1/4 and cut it. So then we'll have this leftover piece here. So these are the pieces we're going to be using. Now don't worry about writing down the measurements or the supplies and stamp sets and everything that I used on here, because we will be putting that, well, me, myself, and I will be putting it onto my blog post for this card. So now we have our pieces for our card. Whoop! Getting quite a little mess here. And we're going to be using the frosted floral designer paper that comes on that same suite. Look how beautiful this is. It has a frosted, it's not metallic, but a pearlescent would be the word, pearlescent sheen to it. So many beautiful, beautiful patterns. I chose on this card to use this pattern and this pattern that matches the image in the stamp set. So let's get started with the card. So we've got our card base done. We've got our score line. And we can just fold this over. We don't even need to use our bone folder at this point because it's already cut and we don't have to, but let's go ahead. Haha, it was right handy for me. So that's going to be the front of the card base. We're going to take a 1 1/2 inch by 4 piece of our designer paper. Look how pretty that gray granite is on that side too. So we'll just put a little glue on here. Give us a little slippy slidey room when we're putting it onto the card. And you're just going to get a nice 1/8 inch border the whole way around. So you've got your first piece on. Now this bottom piece fits here, okay? And then you'll notice we'll end up putting this piece to hold the two pieces together. But we're going to go ahead and put our other piece of designer paper. Now this one is cut to 4 inches by 2 inches. And look how pretty the other side is of this designer paper. That Blackberry Bliss is so pretty. You could really pair it well with that, which I'm sure a lot of people may choose to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this designer paper on the bottom piece that's 2 1/4 by 4 that we cut off when we were making the card base. So essentially, we have got the outside of the card done. Let's go ahead and throw the inside in too. So I'm just going to use a little bit of my snail here so I don't get any blobs of glue. Got to be careful whenever you're putting together a card that you don't squiggle glue all over this part, because believe me, I've gotten cards and you can see all the squiggle lines. So let's put that on the inside. And then now you can see how easy this card is going to go together. And if you want to change these dimensions, you can. I just found it a bigger dimension down here, gave it more stability on the card. So that's our card there. So now we're going to get started on this image here. So what I did is I used all the colors that are found in the designer paper, and I decided to use the Tranquil Tide to ink up. Sorry if I had any bouncing there on my desk, it's not super. And then I'm just going to stamp in Tranquil Tide that floral image. And then the next thing I did was I got out the other green that's in there, and that was Mint Macaron, and I just opened up on the hinge, slid it the whole way open, closed it completely, and then I just stamped the image of it's kind of a, just a nice clean image, and I just did that image right there. On top of the Tranquil Tide, we have the mint. And then I wanted to add just a little bit in. As you can see on here, you see some pineapple punch on here, and you can just see it on the card. So what I decided is I needed to add a little pineapple punch into this floral image because something was just missing. So I found some tiny little dots that were in the Hearts Come Home stamp set that's in the annual catalog. And these little guys right here are going to solve my little dilemma of needing a little bit of pineapple punch. So remember, little stamp, little taps, then check for edges, and then we're just going to put a little yellow onto the card. And it just really added that touch that was needed. Just add a little bit of yellow. Oh, that's adhesive. And maybe a little over here. Okay, so we added a little bit of that pineapple punch for a little bit of a punch to the card. So we're almost done. Now we just have to get this cute little mint, I call it almost like a jagger. It could be a blossom, but it reminds me of those little jaggers. So that's going to be going on there. And I just stamped that and die cut it with the die cut that's in the set. And then I used a little bit of vellum just to give it a little bit of an airy feeling. And I just die cut the image. It's almost mimics this image, but it doesn't die cut that image, but we have that vellum there. Now, you're probably wondering, Cindy was really busy die cutting all of these Blackberry Bliss flowers, but I'll show you how easy I did this. I just got my Stamparatus out, and I took a piece of paper, put it into my Stamparatus, inked up my flowers, and closed it. Took this piece of paper that will become a template over to my Big Shot, and I cut out the big flower and the small flower, and then I wrote the word template on there. I came over and I carefully placed my magnets onto this template, and not moving these at all, I can then die cut. Two, that was the one already done, the finished one. I can die cut two blank ones, which is pretty mindless. All you do is run them through the Big Shot, and then when you're making a card and you want to make a ton, okay, the trick is just being able to put the puzzle together. So you can pop these in. So if you want to make a beautiful bouquet using this stamp set, you can make a bunch of flowers really quick this way. Because, you know, when you're die cutting an image, you're being real fussy about making sure it's right in place. And then be real careful when you're inking up your stamps that you don't ink up this part, because it won't get onto your paper, but it'll get onto your hands, and then all of a sudden you touch your paper and wonder, where did the ink come from? It came from here. So then you can just close your stamp right on there. And then you might ask, what if I wanted to get these out without getting ink on me? Well, you can just get out your little take your pick tool, and I found this really handy when I was getting these made, and I can just open up the part that has, whoop, I did that wrong there. Take the little part that has the putty, and this is not glue. This is actually just a little tool that can pop that out for you if you didn't pull it out the wrong way there. get a little pretty, and then it'll just pick up those little images right out of there without you having to move your template. So now I have my 2 flowers that I need. Now, as I said, you can do a ton. Let's get all this out of the way. You can do a ton of flowers that way. This was just done really quickly here because I was making some swaps. So it made it go really fast. So what we're going to do to put this together is we need a piece of 2 1/4 by 4 1/4 Tranquil Tide to go around that image. So what we're going to do is just get this put onto the border of Tranquil Tide, and we just put it on with a nice 1/8 inch border all around. And we will now, to keep this in place, what I will sometimes do is take a little bit of temporary adhesive that is over on my other desk, and I'll just put a little bit of temporary adhesive there so that it keeps the bottom of the card in place for me, and then I can take it right back off, and then put a little bit up here too. And then that closes the card for me, and then I'll know exactly how I can put this on. Now when I put this on though, I'm going to use my snail, and I'm just going to get it right on the bottom parts, and then I'm going to place it where it looks visually appealing. Usually I try to keep a smaller border over here, and since I'm using snail, if I don't have enough room here for some reason, I can adjust it there. So what I'm going to do is get out the image I like out of here. Thinking of you. I might try the time to celebrate, or maybe happy for you. Thank you for being so sweet. Which one shall we do? There's thinking of you and thank you for being so sweet. Let's do the thank you for being so sweet. So we're going to put it on our block nice and straight, and then we're going to use our Tranquil Tide ink pad, set our siders up, and nice small font, so I don't want to do CPR with my stamps on my ink pad. So I've got it inked up, and then I'm going to bring it back down here, nice and straight, and put it into my peek through the middle. And there we've got the thank you for being so sweet. This stamp set is a very versatile stamp set with all these different sentiments in. It's not just for those little treat holders, so just remember that, not to overlook that. So there we've got our sentiment. Now we just have to build up this floral portion of the card. Okay, so what I did is I put a little bit of my snail on the back of the smaller purple flower. That way I can kind of build up on the back of it with this little green mint macaron. And then I went ahead and put the vellum coming off of there too. There we go. Then I can just tear off the back of that. And actually that's backwards. You guys can't see that. Let me see, which is the good? That's the good side. There we go. Put the vellum on there. Then I'm just going to put some Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of the big flower. When I originally made this card, I had, let's just use this little piece here. No, I want to use that on that one. I originally had this flat, and thus the card looked flat to me. So what we're going to do is just pop that Blackberry Bliss bigger flower, and then I'm going to actually stick this dimensional right there on the card, because part of it is going to overlap here, and if I put the dimensional on the flower, it's going to be all wonky. So what I did is put the dimensional right there where I knew it would go, and then I can just pop the smaller Blackberry Bliss flower there. Now I'm sure there's some more things I could come up with, like putting some fancy pearls here and there, but my mind just hasn't done that.